Book of Heaven, Volume 5. 6 June to 3 July 1903. Page 10–15. June 6, 1903. Jesus teaches her how she must behave in the state of abandonment and of sufferings. After going through bitter days of privations and of sufferings, this morning I found myself outside of myself with baby Jesus in my arms. As soon as I saw him, I said, "Ah, dear Jesus, how could you leave me alone? At least teach me how I must behave in this state of abandonment and of sufferings." And he, "My daughter, offer everything you suffer in your arms, in your legs and in your heart together with the sufferings of my members by reciting 5 glory bees, and offer it to divine justice to satisfy for the works, the steps and the bad desires of the hearts which creatures commit continuously. Unite it, then, to my sufferings caused by the thorns and to those of my shoulders, with the recitation of 3 glory bees, and offer it for the satisfaction of the 3 powers of man, which are so disfigured that I can no longer recognize my image in them. And try to keep your will always united to me and in continuous attitude of loving me. Let your memory be the bell that rings continuously within you, and reminds you of what I have done and suffered for you, and of how many graces I have given to your soul, so as to thank me and be grateful to me, since gratitude is the key that opens the divine treasures. Let your intellect think of nothing, and occupy itself with nothing but God. If you do this, I will find again my image in you, and I will take the satisfaction which I cannot receive from the other creatures. And you must do this continuously, because if the offense is continuous, continuous must be the satisfaction." Then I added, "Ah, Lord, how cativa, bad, I have made myself, I have become even greedy." And he, "My daughter, do not fear, when a soul does everything for me, everything she takes, even refreshments themselves, I receive as if she were refreshing my suffering body. And those who give them to her I consider as if they were giving them to me. So much so, that if they did not give them, I would feel pain. But in order for you to remove any doubt, every time they give you some refreshment and you feel the necessity to take it, you will not only do it for me, but will add, 'Lord, I intend to refresh your suffering body within mine.'" While saying this, little by little he withdrew into my interior, and I could no longer see him and talk to him. I felt such pain, that because of the sorrow I would have torn myself to pieces to be able to find him again. So I began to tear the part of my interior in which he had enclosed himself, and so I found him, and with highest sorrow I said, "Ah, Lord, how can you leave me? Are you perhaps not my life, such that without you, not only the soul, but also the body is completely shattered and cannot bear the intensity of the pain of your privation? So much so, that it seems to me that I am going to die right here and now, my only and sole comfort, death." But as I was saying this, Jesus blessed me and withdrew into my interior again. He disappeared, and I found myself inside myself. June 15, 1903. How the creature can preserve the creative, redemptive and sanctifying works of God within herself. As I was in my usual state, I don't know how I saw my adorable Jesus inside my eye. I was surprised, and he told me, "My daughter, one who makes use of her senses to offend me deforms my image within herself. Therefore sin gives death to the soul, not because she really dies, but because it gives death to everything which is divine. If then she uses her senses to glorify me, I can say, 'You are my eye, my hearing, my mouth, my hands and my feet.' By this, she preserves my creative work within herself, and if to her glorifying me she adds suffering, satisfying and repairing for others, she preserves within herself my redemptive work. And as she perfects these works of mine within herself, my sanctifying work rises again, sanctifying everything and preserving it within her soul. In fact, for everything I have done in the creative, redemptive and sanctifying works, I have transfused in the soul a participation in my very operating. However, everything is in whether the soul corresponds to my work." June 16, 1903. What renders the soul more dear, more beautiful, more lovable and more intimate with God is her perseverance in operating to please Him alone. Continuing in my usual state, I found myself outside of myself, and I saw baby Jesus with a cup full of bitterness and a stick in his hand, and he said to me, "See, my daughter, what a cup of bitterness the world continuously gives me to drink. And I, Lord, share it with me so you won't suffer alone." So he gave me to drink a little bit of that bitterness, and then, with the stick he had in his hand, he began to pierce the place of my heart through, to the point of making a hole from which a rivulet of that bitterness which I had drunk came out. However, it was changed into sweet milk, and went into the mouth of the baby, who was all sweetened and refreshed. Then he told me, "My daughter, when I give to the soul the bitterness of tribulations, if the soul conforms to my will, is grateful to me, thanks me for it and offers it to me as a gift, for her it is bitterness, it is suffering, but for me it changes into sweetness and refreshment. But what cheers me the most and gives me the most pleasure is to see that the soul, whether she operates or suffers, is all intent on pleasing me alone, with no other end or purpose of recompense. However, what renders the soul more dear, more beautiful, more lovable, more intimate with the divine being, is her perseverance in this way of behaving, which renders her immutable with the immutable God. In fact, if today she does something and tomorrow she doesn't, if one time she has one end and another time another, if today she tries to please God and tomorrow creatures, she is the image of one who today is queen and tomorrow a most miserable servant. Today she nourishes herself with delicious foods, tomorrow with filth. After a little while he disappeared, but a little later he came back, adding, "The sun is there for the benefit of all, but not everyone enjoys its beneficial effects. In the same way, the divine sun gives its light to all, but who enjoys its beneficial effects? One who keeps his eyes open to the light of truth. All others, even if they are exposed to the sun, remain in the dark. However, it is one who is all intent on pleasing me that truly enjoys and receives all the fullness of this sun." June 30, 1903. The Most Holy Virgin teaches the soul how to keep her interior gaze fixed on Jesus. The beauty of the interior soul. As I was outside of myself, I saw the Queen Mother, and prostrating myself at her feet, I said to her, "My most sweet Mother, in what terrible constraints I find myself, deprived of my only good and of my very life. I feel I am touching the extremes." While saying this, I was crying, and the Most Holy Virgin, opening herself at the place of her heart, as if she were opening a tabernacle, took the baby from within it and gave him to me, telling me, "My daughter, do not cry. Here is your good, your life, your all. Take him and keep him always with you, and as you keep him with you, keep your interior gaze fixed on him. Do not be embarrassed if he does not tell you anything, or if you are unable to say anything. Just look at him in your interior, and by looking at him you will comprehend everything, you will do everything, and you will satisfy for all. This is the beauty of the interior soul, without voice, without education, since there is no external thing that attracts her or upsets her, but all of her attraction, all of her goods are enclosed in her interior. By simply looking at Jesus she easily comprehends everything and does everything. In this way, you will walk up to the top of Calvary, and once we reach it, you will no longer see him as a baby, but crucified, and you will remain crucified together with him. So it seemed that, with the baby in my arms and together with the Most Holy Virgin, we walked the way of Calvary. While walking, at times I would find someone who wanted to take Jesus away from me, and I would call the Queen Mother to my help, saying to her, "My Mama, help me, for they want to snatch Jesus away from me." And she would answer me, "Do not fear, your care must be in keeping your interior gaze fixed on him." This has so much power, that all other powers, human and diabolical, remain debilitated and defeated. Now, while we were walking, we found a temple in which Holy Mass was being celebrated. At the time of Holy Communion I flew to the altar with the baby in my arms in order to receive communion, but what was not my surprise when, as soon as Jesus Christ entered into me, he disappeared from my arms. Then, after a little while, I found myself inside myself. July 3, 1903. If the soul gives herself completely to Jesus in life, Jesus gives himself to her at her death and exempts her from purgatory. This morning, as I was very afflicted because of the loss of my adorable Jesus, All of a sudden he made himself seen in my interior, filling my person completely, that is, my head, my arms, and all the rest. As I was seeing this, almost wanting to explain to me the meaning of the way he was making himself seen, he told me, "My daughter, why do you afflict yourself if I am the master of all of you? When a soul comes to rendering me the master of her mind, of her arms, of her heart and of her feet, sin cannot reign. And if something involuntary enters into her, since I am the master and the soul is under the influence of my lordship, she is in continuous attitude of purgation, and that something immediately goes out of her. Furthermore, since I am holy, it is difficult for her to retain within herself anything which is not holy. Even more, since she has given all of herself to me in life, it is justice that I give all of myself to her at her death, admitting her to the beatific vision without delay. So, if one gives herself completely to me, the flames of purgatory have nothing to do with her."